Busy but productive week this week, Senator. I know your priority measure on PD&P is moving forward in the process.
Yes, very excited about that. We were able to get the prescription drug monitoring bill out of committee, and it will move forward, hopefully, to the Senate floor very soon. I look forward to having that. And again, it's the compromise bill that we got up until the last week of last session and had both houses agreeing, but it had the one provision added to it, which was the increased penalties on fentanyl that many of the House members did not agree with, and so it didn't make it across the line at that point. But the increased penalties for fentanyl was passed last year on another bill, and so that is law currently. So there was no reason to have that on our bill this year. So it is last year's compromise bill and does not include the increased penalties on fentanyl. So I'm hopeful that we will again have agreement in both houses and actually be able to get it across the line early.
And that's the biggest point. Does it make a difference that it's fifth week of session and this bill is moving faster than presumably it has in the past?
It really does. Now, of course, once it gets to the House, it absolutely depends on the Speaker referring it and then the floor leader adding it to the calendar. So definitely want to be mindful and hopeful of that. But I am very excited that we're this early in session and moving forward in the Senate.
Another busy week in terms of action on the floor of the Missouri Senate with the COVID liability bill moving forward as well.
Absolutely. And that, of course, was my first experience as filibuster since this is my first year in the Senate. And we went until almost 6 in the morning. Definitely worked through a lot of the concerning parts of the bill that had some folks concerned. You know, one thing in particular, many of us were concerned for our churches. We wanted to be sure that our churches and our pastors for having service are not, opening themselves up to frivolous lawsuits over COVID. I'm very much a personal responsibility person, and if you decide to go shopping, if you decide to go to church, you are doing that at your own risk. That's personal responsibility. And so, if making sure that you protect yourself is important, I think that the trial attorneys have already started taking advantage of this pandemic. And so I want to be sure that we protect our churches, that we protect our businesses, and this COVID liability bill does that. And our healthcare workers, they've been putting themselves on the front lines and putting their families at risk by extension of that because of being on the front lines. And so we definitely want to be sure that we are protecting them in this process as well. And our businesses have been harmed so much already. We definitely don't want frivolous lawsuits to put those that are still hanging on under. It's been incredibly important. One of the things that we've had negative about the bill, I know some trial attorneys and some others have been spreading some misinformation that nursing homes would not be liable, and would not be responsible anymore if they had wrongdoing with the COVID. And that's just not the case. I think that we have to keep in mind that lawsuits are definitely the bread and butter for trial attorneys. That's their business, suing others. And so we have to be mindful of where some of this information is coming from. I think that this is an incredibly important piece of legislation, and I'm very excited that we were able to get to a compromise and finish the bill.
That's a big part of it, too, is the fact that despite the fact it feels like this pandemic's been going on forever, we're realistically early on in the process in terms of the after effects, and that includes what kind of legal action could come from these things.
Absolutely. And if you're a business owner and you've already been struggling because of shutdowns and everything, what a final nail in the coffin it could be to have a frivolous lawsuit thrown at you. And so, this is incredibly important. It does. Hopeful that we can get it across the line with an emergency clause so that it can get signed into statute right away.